So, Gaurav, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
I was saying before we started recording that I remember getting into the ecosystem and always seeing your face across user groups and different events that are going on all around the world. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show now.
No, thank you for having me. All I can say is I've had a very rewarding career in the Salesforce ecosystem, and it's my moral responsibility to help others and give back.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I think we're obviously going to go through your career and hear more about the Salesforce journey that you've been on. But I always like to start before Salesforce and get a sense for what your career looked like before you found this platform and ecosystem. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started working almost 2 decades back, and to be honest, I was happily immersed in a world of protocol stacks and system programming. I really enjoyed that low-level programming, dealing with operating systems, building devices like modems, routers, and all of that. And in 2007, I actually moved back to be with my family in a small town called Jaipur in the north of India, and my company was exploring Salesforce for a couple of possible opportunities, and that's how it all started. I won't say that it was love at first org or first sight, but over a period of time, I think I started enjoying the aspects of the Salesforce platform, and then I think there was no looking back.
So when you say it wasn't particularly love at first sight, love at first org, I've not heard that saying before. But what were your initial thoughts on the platform? Like, was it a was it fresh air coming into the cloud, or did you have any concerns about the platform?
Yeah, so as I said, I was working more on device drivers and low-level system programming, typical geek stuff with so many gadgets and boxes lying around my desk, and just the kind of stuff that you see in Hollywood movies. And moving to an application layer and moving to a platform where you could actually do things without writing code. For somebody who had been a hardcore developer for several years, I found it difficult to adjust to that change initially, but when I started realizing the power of the platform, I think that's when I kind of made peace with it.
So what was your first role in Salesforce? Like your first, I guess your first deliverable as a Salesforce professional. What were you working on? Like development or configuration? What was the
Yeah, it was a mix of development and configuration, but then within a very short span of time. And this was when smartphones were still in their infancy stage, and Salesforce was looking at a potential mobile offering. I was asked to pivot to building some mobile solutions on Salesforce. And that was a fascinating time when I look back at it, because there was no mobile SDK, no Salesforce One. There were just some open source packages, and then it was up to your imagination on how you could use the Salesforce APIs and build an iPhone app or an Android app. So that was I would say a golden phase. And again, that was where I think when I realized that there is so much that you can do with this platform, and so many use cases across different verticals.
so since then, how has your Salesforce journey evolved in terms of the kind of roles that you've held and played?
Yeah, so I started essentially off as a developer, looking at some. Um, if I were to classify, I mean, I was not really a fan of the no code approach, but again, over a period of time, I learned to appreciate the fact that you need not write code for everything and anything, and you should not write code for anything and everything. So then became a module lead, technical lead, took on an architect's role, and then in my last company, I was managing multiple accounts on Salesforce. Um, and from a domain perspective, again, it changed. As I said, I started off as a developer on the core platform, moved on to building mobile apps, doing mobile integrations. Um, and then there was a phase when I actually focused a lot on the commerce side of things, more so on the B2C commerce when it was still demandware. Um, and then for the last few years, my role has obviously completely changed. I work as CTO at MTX Group, which is a platinum partner with Salesforce. Fancy titles apart, I still play the role of a technical architect and a solution architect on some strategic projects. I also get engaged in the pre-sales cycle because I have a fair understanding of what the various solutions are, what goes where, what's not a good fit where. So it's an assorted array of responsibilities I have, but it's everything that I really enjoy doing.
And what's your favorite part of your role? What kind of problems do you most enjoy solving?
Uh, I mean, I like to say that I'm a developer at heart and an architect by profession. So I like to kind of build out architectures, do system landscapes, data modeling, and then uh, put them to life. So nothing like being able to translate an architecture into a working prototype or a proof of concept. That is, I think, where my heart and soul is.
Sure. So you're the CTO of a business. You have a young family, and the world is a crazy place to be right now. How are you so active in the community? Because, like I said, I see you everywhere. You're if the events are happening in the world, which obviously they're not right now in person, but you're typically at these events. You've been to Dreamforces. You've been all over the world. How do you have time? And can you tell us a bit about some of the initiatives that you're currently running?
Sure. So I live a very disciplined life, I think, and when you do that, I think you make time for most things. I am on the right side of 40, I would say. So I don't have a lot of distractions, which typically young people have. I've always kind of devoted at least 2 hours a day for my own learning, and whether that's learning something new, whether that's preparing for a certification, answering questions on Stack Exchange, or just focusing on these community activities. I think 2 hours of my day every single day, that is a time I do not compromise. I'm an early riser, uh, so that gives me a lot of additional time. So by the time I'm prepared to by the time most people are actually starting work, I'm actually done with about 30% of what I need to do during the day. So that has helped. With this COVID situation, I think the world has obviously changed. I think, and I think it's for me, it's been a blessing in disguise in multiple ways. I've had a lot of time to spend with my family. There was no travel, which was again a huge time saver, and I think I've made good use of it with certifications and some of the other initiatives. So I I got in touch with a gentleman called Johan from Germany, and he was running this initiative called Salesforce Architects in the Making. And since I have been on my CTA journey for a while, I thought it's a good medium to kind of build an audience there and help each other. And so we run monthly meetups there. Apart from that, I run a developer user group in Jaipur, the city where I live. We just did our last meetup on Saturday. It was a Lightning Web Components deep dive masterclass, as we called it. So yeah, I think it's just up to people on how they manage their time. And I think once you do that, things start happening.
Sure. So you said you've been on the architect journey for a little while. I think everyone I speak to has this goal of being a CTA, and obviously, I've spoken to quite a lot of people that have got there. But what have you found to be kind of misconceptions, or what don't you think people appreciate about the challenges that journey, what you face when you go through that journey, and how does the architecture meetup that you're running with Johan help address that?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that people have is that once they do the domain certifications, which is the system architect and the application architect, a lot of people believe they are ready for the review board. The reality is that you are not ready. When you are ready, you actually know you are ready. So those are milestones which kind of are prerequisites in the journey. But I think there is no substitute for experience. And there is no substitute for studying. So I think I did my domain certs, and like everybody else, I kind of had this fancy illusion that now is the time to go for the review board. I attended a CTA 601 class, and which helped me kind of with a reality check in terms of there are a number of things which I'm not good at. There are shortcomings which I need to do. So I've been working on that. I prepared my study plan. I was actually supposed to go through my review board this month, but my family was somewhat impacted by COVID. Thankfully, they all recovered, but I was under some stress for a number of weeks, and I requested Salesforce, and now I'm kind of back in the CTA aspirant queue, and hoping to take the board next year. With the Salesforce architects in the making group, the thought process is similar. I think a lot of people who are on their journey, they typically struggle with certain aspects. I mean, not everybody is strong with everything. So we take up certain topics every month, and then we try and go as deep as possible with those topics. So, for example, the last one, we actually had somebody who came in with a very strong compliance background, and he talked about things like compliance, Salesforce Shield, GDPR, um, and other compliance standards that, again, CTA is very important. I mean, it's very important for you to know from a compliance perspective. We've obviously have had several other guests. On the last episode, again, we had Sebastian Wagner, Flow Republic, the master coach, and I think having him as part of that event was just such a big morale booster for everybody who's on their CTA journey.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't met anyone that can articulate a problem or solve a problem quite like Sebastian. Now he like I'm never going to be going down that journey, but whenever he talks about a problem or a topic, everyone in the room can kind of come away and understand what he meant by that, even if they're technical, non-technical, never heard of Salesforce before. I think it's great that he's giving back to the community as well.
Absolutely. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And I think two things which I really like is his problem solving approach and how he can gel that with the storytelling. I think just to make sure that everybody in the room kind of gets that message. I think that's a very, very special skill to have.
Sure. And this again shows the beauty of the Salesforce ecosystem, right? Because you're running this with Johan. And have you ever met Johan before?
No,
It's
we've
crazy,
never
right?
met. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the beauty of the ecosystem. Everyone's helping each other out, collaborating, sharing, and trying to raise each other to a point that everyone can be successful.
absolutely.
So what have you identified as your gaps?
From a technical perspective, I think identity is something which I've traditionally not been very strong with, and again, I put together a study plan on how to improve that. Apart from that, I think it's just that there is a lot of things that you need to remember for the review board. So, for example, you get often quizzed on, if this is not a good fit, then what would you use, what would be the limitation of using that particular solution or that particular framework. I'm not particularly good at remembering numbers, and uh, so again, I'm trying to work around that. I've been following some mind maps for a while now, and that seems to be working. As I said, I'm on the right side of 40, so my memory is not as strong as it used to be, but hopefully, I think I'll be able to cross that bridge.
Well, you're doing something right with your memory because you have 33 certifications.
So I think that's a side effect of being around for a long time. And as I said, I think I'd worked on a lot of the secondary cloud sales, service, marketing, Pardot, but I never really got time to prepare for the exams and be able to appear for these certifications. I think with this pandemic, and I mean, I've not really stepped out of my house much for the last 6 months. I really did not have much else to do than study, and I think that has helped as well. So
Sure. So, what value do you put on certifications? Because obviously, like you said, it was a struggle to find the time to do them at one point. And look, you're a busy guy, and there's obviously a lot on your plate from a work perspective. But do you think everyone needs to find the time to do them? And like, why are they important for you?
yeah, I think you kind of brought out a very important topic. There has been obviously a lot of debate on this on LinkedIn and Twitter in the last few months, because I think with the pandemic, the number of certifications has actually gone up exponentially. Some people like it, some people don't like it. Um, I think I would say to each his or her own. I think that's what I think. For me, a certification is important for a few things. One is that it brings discipline to your learning. So you might set a target to learn something, but unless um, I think it actually helps you get more discipline towards a learning goal. Otherwise, I've seen myself. I mean, there are a few things which I tried to learn, and since there was no pressure of an exam or a certification, I used to put those. It used to go on a back burner just way too often. Second is, I think it's a validation of a skill. If you do a certification, honestly, you need to study hard. You need to understand the concepts. You need to try out certain things. So for me, it's a very important validation of a skill. Obviously, there are a lot of dumps which are prevalent in Salesforce market. I strongly detest anybody from using dumps. If you are doing that, you are not only cheating yourself, but you are actually cheating on the community as well. And eventually it will not help, because at some stage in an interview or in a project or somewhere else, you will actually be caught on the wrong foot, and then you would have nobody else to blame but yourself. So
Yeah.
David Liu actually put out a very nice video on this, SFDC 99, and he actually questioned why people should be doing certifications. And in a series of videos, he actually laid out those thoughts beautifully, that certifications are very, very relevant only if you do them right. So, and
Yeah.
that's my stand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely didn't get dumped. I promise you that. But I do have my admin certification. I went to a boot camp in the Gold Coast in Australia and passed the certification last year. But this I think is really important because it shows, like, yes, at that time I had the knowledge, but
Yeah.
I use Salesforce every single day, but I don't do any Salesforce configuration work ever, really. Like, occasionally I might, but very, very rarely. And this week I was doing I wanted to do some work, not me, but I wanted to have some work done on my org. And I had to ask someone how to set up a sandbox and how to reset the password on the sandbox. But I have my admin cert, right? So at one point I knew how to do that, but I've forgotten. And I think that's the important aspect, right? At one time, someone can be certified, but they need to keep maintaining that knowledge and building on that knowledge to stay relevant. And if they're not doing that, then there's no point in having the certification. Like, for me, it's not valid right now because I don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I mean, if you are certified, doesn't mean that you are an expert in that area, and vice versa as well. I mean, you may have all the knowledge, but you may choose not to go for a certification. A lot of people do that. So as I said, I mean, it just depends on the specific individual. In general, I think Salesforce certifications are still respected a lot. Uh, and then I am very fortunate to be working on an initiative with the community initiative that Salesforce is running, where they are trying really hard to protect the value of these credentials, not just certifications, but super badges, trailhead content in general. And I'm really excited on some of the changes that will be coming in the next few months on how to put a premium back on these certifications and super badges.
Sure. I'm excited to see that. And so how do you prepare for certifications? Because you passed 33. Do you ever fail?
Oh yes, I've failed a lot. So I think one thing which has actually helped me is my fear of failure, or rather that shame and guilt of failure that I felt in my first few exams. That went away, and then I failed a number of certifications. I think if I look at my web assessor, I think total number of attempts is about 52 or 53. So I failed about 20 times, and again, I have no shame in that. I mean, it's a learning process. You either pass or you learn, and then you kind of rinse and repeat that model. My formula has been fairly simple. As I said, I study with a lot of discipline. And I actually did a post a while back on this. I use a lot of resources. So, being a Salesforce partner, there are a lot of fast paths that the Salesforce partner team conducts, and those are fantastic. They are actually aimed at helping you pass the exams. They focus just pinpoint on those concepts which are important from an exam perspective. A lot of these actually have quizzes which are like a simulation of the actual exam. Questions are not the same as the exam, but very close to what you can expect. That has helped. There is a partner learning camp, which are self study courses, but again, these are specifically aimed at certification. So I've seen a lot of people do that, and I think that's again a reason why a lot of people are passing their exams. There is obviously no substitute for trailhead modules and the trail mixes. Absolutely, you should do that. And then I think where a lot of people miss the trick is they don't try out things enough. So if you have access to a sandbox and in some cases it can get tricky. So for example, like Marketing Cloud is still relatively easy. B2C commerce, getting a sandbox is a little bit difficult, but I encourage, if you try hard enough, post in the partner community, Trailblazer community, there are doors that open up. So if you do all of that, if you prepare a study plan and stick to it, I think there is a good chance you'll pass. And even if you fail, you can look at my example and then reattempt, and hopefully second time lucky or third time lucky.
Yeah, I think that's really refreshing to hear that you have failed, because I think a lot of people, especially new people to the market, they're so scared to fail because they're not aware that this happens every day. Like I've met people that have got 5 years Salesforce experience and they're scared to, and they feel rusty, and they're like, oh, I'm rusty on a few of the concepts. Maybe I won't attempt it yet. And I'm like, well, I passed, and I've never been an admin. I've never spent, like, my full-time job has never been a Salesforce professional. If I can pass, you can pass if you know your stuff. But yeah, I think the fear of failing puts a lot of people off, and obviously there is a dollar value associated with that. But not everyone can afford to keep trying. But I think if you can, and you have a good level of knowledge already, then there's no harm in trying and failing if that's the case. And like you said, learning. So you mentioned Commerce Cloud, and I've read online that that's your favorite cloud.
That is correct. Yes.
Why is that? Because it's a really important one right now, right, in the current climate.
Yeah, so I think a few years back, when again I was actually doing some work on an alternate platform, I came across Commerce Cloud, and there was an implementation which I kind of complex implementation, and I kind of joined in the middle of that, and I was really amazed at the level of scale and the impact that what you produce in an e-commerce space that can have, and transactions which go into millions of dollars on a short span of time. So in that sense, I think it was a refreshing change, because commerce was one domain which I had not worked on earlier, and Salesforce actually wanted somebody to teach commerce in Asia Pacific to partners and customers, and that's when I was introduced, and somehow it kind of stuck around, and I had the pleasure of teaching B2C commerce courses for partners, customers. In fact, a number of classes I took, about 10 of them were in Australia, and in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, all over APAC, I would say. So that was really good exposure, and I liked the platform, and I liked the direction in which it was going, and again, I kind of stuck to it. So I'm really happy that's still going on. Over a period of time, I diversified. I built some skills on B2B commerce as well, and overall, I think it's a very exciting stage as far as Salesforce e-commerce solutions are concerned, because they actually made a very exciting acquisition called Mobify a couple of months back, and as that gets integrated, I think with offline capabilities coming in and a lot of other features on the roadmap, I think the best of Salesforce e-commerce is yet to come. And being a shameless plug, I also published a course on Salesforce e-commerce on Pluralsight, and I strongly encourage people to go and watch that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we link out to that. And that's another place I've seen you, Pluralsight. You have a few different things on there, right?
Yeah, I have two courses, and both, again, first thing I did was Salesforce mobile development. I did that for several years, and both the courses I did were with Don Robbins, who's a Salesforce MVP, and he's done about 49 of those courses on Pluralsight. So I owe both those courses to Don, because it takes a lot to publish a course, and without somebody like him who's constantly pushing people all the time, it's very difficult to do that.
Sure. So you have traveled all over the place, but now you're back home, and you're there for the foreseeable. So can you tell us a little bit about the market there, the Indian Salesforce market, and kind of what's happening in that region?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a lull period, I would say, earlier this year till about June, July. And since then, things have been picking up. And I think as people realize that COVID-19 is here to stay, I think the economic repercussions of it have kind of slowed down. The market is picking up. There is a lot of deals happening. Um, Specifically for my company, we don't really have customers in India, but we do a lot of work in the public sector in US, and We built some solutions around work.com, as well as our own solution around emergency response management, vaccination, back to work, safe reopening, all of those solutions. So in general, for us, it has actually worked out really well. And other than that, also, I think in the partner ecosystem in India, I see that things are actually moving along well. The people are hiring, a lot of projects on offer, and so overall, I think there are all the good right signs for a good recovery.
Yeah, nice. And you mentioned that your company doesn't do much work with companies in India, but is there much of a market of companies using Salesforce in India?
Absolutely. I think over the last few years, India has actually become a very strong market for Salesforce. There are a lot of big business conglomerates which are now using Salesforce. India was traditionally an SAP market, a little bit of Oracle as well, but now I think Salesforce has done really well to capture some of that market share. So I think, yeah, I somewhere I think I read a study that not just from a jobs perspective, but from a customer perspective, I think Salesforce is going to boom in India for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I saw today actually that there was an announcement that there were going to be X amount of new jobs in the region in India.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to see that. And now there's a handful of CTAs in India as well. I think maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, around four. And the common, I think, point across them, all of them, is that they are either working for Salesforce or they have actually worked at Salesforce for some point of time. So I think India is still waiting for people from the community to kind of conquer their CTA journey mountains. And I think, but I do want to point out that even the people from Salesforce who have been CTAs, like I have sought some guidance time and again, and all of them are very, very helpful. So, and again, that goes back to the overall global community that Salesforce has, that no matter what role you are in, no matter what company you are working for, people are there. And when you seek help, there are always people to guide you. So I'm
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
thankful to all of them as well.
Yeah, and what about community events in Sydney? Because from here, when we see community events in India, when we see the events online, like I've never been, I would love to come one day in the future, but they seem to get a huge amount of following.
Oh,
So
yes.
the community seems really, really strong in India.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, in Jaipur, we did a couple of events called Jaipur Developer Festival in 2017 and 2018, and those were very, very popular. We actually had people fly in from Australia. The ISV team flew down from the Sydney office to present at that event. There was another event called India Dreaming, which happened for 2 years. An event in Hyderabad. And then I think Salesforce realized that India is where there is a lot of volume, obviously. And then they brought Trailer DX to India last year, December 2019. There was a Trailer DX in June in San Francisco and a Trailer DX in India, which was sold out within, I think, a matter of days. So India is traditionally, I think, a very strong community for developers. I think now is the time for the community to kind of produce a lot more architects as well. There was actually an architect summit, which was a community event last year. Again, that was very well organized and very well received. So I think I'm hoping that 2021 we do a lot of good architect events.
Yeah, nice. And we have mentioned you've traveled a lot. So what's been your favorite event that you've ever been to from a Salesforce perspective?
Oh, that would be like asking me to pick my favorite child, and I think it's a little unfair. But I've been again very fortunate to present at a lot of groups. I've actually presented in Australia as well at the Melbourne group, uh, London's Calling, several events in US, in India. But I think if I were to pick one, I think I'll go back to when it all started. My first ever Dreamforce session in 2012. And I think I call it my Dreamforce love story. It started in 2012, and every year since then, I've actually presented at Dreamforce. So 2020 is a little bit of a disappointment in that sense that Dreamforce is either not happening, or even if it's happening, then I'll probably not get a chance to present. But yeah, 2012, I presented on a Evernote Salesforce integration, mobile integration that we built. And Salesforce actually invited me to come and present there. So it has very special memories. And my legs were shaking, and I had absolutely no clue of what I was uttering, but it was a very special. It was a very special session for me.
Yeah, amazing. Well, hopefully we'll get to see you at a future Dreamforce. Who knows when that will be, but fingers crossed it's soon. And thanks so much for spending some time speaking with us. I've really enjoyed hearing more about you and your journey. If anyone does want to reach out and ask any questions, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so I'm reasonably active on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I have a blog which is mostly dormant, but I do try and post every once in a while. But Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as Salesforce Stack Exchange, I keep an eye on them on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure we share the links to each. And yeah, thanks so much. Really enjoyed talking with you.
So thank you, Ben. This was wonderful, and it took me back in time on how my Salesforce journey started. And as I said earlier as well, I loved some of the episodes that I've listened to, and I'm looking forward to seeing this published.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, Ben.